Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited about this presentation, and I know that Dr. Joel is as well, because we've waited 6 months of testing out the very technology we'll be discussing today on ourselves, which is, of course, the best way to do life before you share something that you want to benefit others with. And so today we have the great honor of being with our friend and colleague, Guti, who is the founder of Mitalux, an incredible company whose technology both Joelle and I have experienced personally, and which solves one of the primary issues that I have had as an advocate of health and wellness for 2 decades. And actually before that, it was another decade when I was, in the educational part of a health food store chain, which is trying to figure out how do we help people without just giving them a ton of supplements, because supplements are in some cases life-saving. I know I've done, great work with them for myself and others, but some things cannot be taken through a supplement. And there's certain root cause uh, elements of health that have to be procured through nature, but sometimes nature doesn't provide those in a way that we need because of the way we live. So today we're going to have an incredible conversation around sunlight reimagined, and Joelle, myself, and Guti will share with you some of the really incredible results that we've had with this technology. So I'll pass it right on to you, Joelle. I know it's been 6 months of us wanting to do this presentation, but we really did our due diligence to make sure this really does what we think it does, and it's pretty miraculous.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Sayer. And hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Joel Bohemier. I'm a chiropractor in Naples, Florida. And even though I live in Naples, Florida, which has sunshine almost every day of the year, in testing my patients and seeing the levels of vitamin D in their bloodstream, the majority of them are still very low. And as we're going to go over the necessity of vitamin D in the body for proper health, proper regeneration, proper function, protecting you from all types of different diseases, it is an absolutely crucial vitamin to have at very specific levels for your body to work right. And so I'm very excited to have and to introduce to you today Guti, or Gerardo Gutierrez, who has developed something that both Sayer and I have been discussing now for years. As a matter of fact, Sayer talks a lot about sunlight in his book Regenerate, and how it activates so many different pathways in the body. And so we're going to have Guti start with this, and then we're going to dive into the science behind sunlight and why it is so important for overall health, well-being, and regeneration. And it might be one of the, if not the most important vitamin that is necessary for wellness. So welcome, Guti.
Thank you, Sawyer, and thank you, El, for having me here. Yes, it's been a long wait, and I'm super happy to share everything I learned during the last years regarding the healing powers of sunlight. Because even in my case, I come from a background of photography. So before this, I've been studying light as a shaping tool for objects, and I even made 17 books on photography, but I had no idea on all of the biological benefits that light could bring to the table until I had my own journey that made necessary to rediscover this hidden tool for many of us that is called natural sunlight. So super happy to share.
Yeah, now if I could just jump in really quick before we start, the biggest, most powerful revelation I've had over the years is the lack of a specific waveform that you can get from the sun that is found almost nowhere. People don't have it anymore. They're not exposed to it. So this is why this technology is so exciting to us. And this presentation is going to be pretty mind-blowing for people. So feel free to jump right into it.
Okay, perfect. So let's dive in. So the name of the presentation is Sunlight Reimagined, and it's because I really want you to open your mind right now, because a lot of the things that you'll learn here, if somebody had told me 5 years ago, I would be like, it's that for real? Because it's amazing everything that natural sunlight could do. So let's jump here. So open your mind to the possibilities. And just make yourself the following question. How much would you pay for a supplement that could reduce the risk of breast and colorectal cancer by 50%? That by itself sounds too good to be true. Or reduce the risk of prostate cancer by 32%, or autoimmune diseases, which is a super huge topic nowadays, by 50%. Diabetes, which is every year growing into incredible numbers, by 33%. Cardiovascular disease and high blood pressure by 30. Alzheimer's by 50. Improved sleep by 20 to 30, respiratory infections by 40, and I could really continue because the list it goes on. Even fertility and libido, which are huge topics right now that people simply don't understand why fertility is just crashing every year, and they don't know. Or skin issues like psoriasis are going every year up, or even reduce the risk of depression and anxiety and seasonal affective disorder by 30%, or all cause mortality by 38%. And all of these numbers are backed by clinical studies. So it's amazing. And do you know the name of the supplement? And just to have an idea, dogs and cats naturally crave it. And just this morning, before recording, my cat was in my house just receiving his favorite spot in the house, which is a little place where he gets sunlight around 8 a.m. So they just love to get the sunlight because they have a better instinct that we do. Also, this incredible supplement has always been worshipped as the giver of life, so they probably knew better than we do. And even 100 years ago, there was an incredible trend that basically hospitals during World War One used it as a medicine to have their patients recovered. And we can go later to this story because this story by itself it's super amazing. So if there's a supplement so incredible, why aren't we talking more about it? And it's probably because there's some interest, as you know. If something is free that could change your life, probably it's better not to talk too much about it. So as you probably have imagined, this supplement is natural sunlight. So it's not supplement, but it's basically what we evolved under for millions of years. And basically all of our biology runs through it. But sadly, during the last 50 years, media has been telling us to avoid it. I was one of the people that were uh, grown under that idea because I was a kid during the 1980s and I was taught like, stay away from the sun. But if you ever go under the sun, just put all of those sun blockers that most of the ingredients are already illegal by now. Because they're not so good for your health, as you can see on the list here. So for trying to prevent the sun, we were adding not safe ingredients to our skin. And as you can see with this trend over here, basically, as an example, Americans spend less than 8% of their time outdoors. And we can see here the trend from the 1970s. Actually, during the 1980s, it went a little bit up. So that was a good childhood for me. But then during the 1990s, and it continues to go down every year. So let's see how can that affect.
You know,
And
I'll just add too, Guti, if you look at the years of the declared pandemic, the numbers went even more extreme to the
yeah.
point where some people are getting, not any outdoor exposure at all. Like they're literally doing school at home, they're working at home. So to your point.
Well, also, I'd like to add when you talked about the dogs and the cats are drawn innately to the sunshine. I'm originally from Winnipeg, Canada, and it's the sun will rise at 9:30 and set at 3:30. So most people are at work in a building during the day and they don't see the sunshine. Literally, it could be for months. And what happens there is that somewhere in like I would say October, November, I mean, the majority of the population starts to set their holiday schedule to go to Florida or Mexico or the southern United States or the Caribbean because they'll even leverage their finances in terms of like putting it on credit cards and going into debt because they seek and they know that at some point they're going to need the sun so badly that they'll pay really whatever, thousands and thousands of dollars to travel south, because there's such a deep need for sunshine, right? And maybe there's not a conscious thought about that, but they know that when you go do that in the middle of January or February or March, and you leave the frozen tundra for the sunshine, there's an energy that comes back. There's a feeling of health that comes back. There's like a positive mental attitude that comes back, even if you just spend 5, 6, or 7 days in the sunshine. So it's not just the animals that have that innate desire for sun. The northerners definitely do as well, just FYI.
Oh yeah, or super rich people, they don't live at one place. They're moving different places in the world according to the season because they're always seeking sunshine.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, but something I want to add, for example, in my country, we have around 3 months of rain. So we still have a lot of daylight hours, but the amount of sunlight goes really down. And even here in El Salvador, that's latitude 13, I can really feel the difference in my mood and in my energy in those 3 months, that basically I'm not able to go outside and take sunlight as its full power. So even here, those 3 months are not as severe as winter in Canada, but I could definitely feel them.
Yeah, I'll just add too, the 37 degrees latitude is essentially, if you're in that area like in Canada, you can't even get the sun to go 50 degrees above the horizon where UVB is produced. So it's almost a life-saving instinct to have to go towards the equator, because the downstream effects of UVB deficiency are literally thousands of molecular events require that waveform, which you're going to go into, Guti, anyway. But people, when you start to realize UVB deficiency has that profound effect on your entire physiology, it's a game changer.
Oh, yes, definitely. And basically, it is said that after latitude 35, that would be like the north of Florida, basically during 5 to 6 months a year, you cannot get enough UVB no matter how much you try, because the sun doesn't get high enough. So even
Yeah,
in Florida.
yeah, and for people who don't know, the thing about UVB is it's only found really 2 to 4 hours on others, like within solar noon, that range. So you only have a small amount of time, and then in certain areas, which you taught me, Aguti, let's say you're in the Caribbean, only 0.4% of the waveform is UVB. So even
Oh,
there,
yeah.
right, you'd have to be buck naked in the middle of the solar noon. No one's getting that. You just can't get it. And then you add in geoengineering pollution, and there's just absolutely no way we're getting what our bodies have required since the beginning of time.
Or even clothing, even if you're here in the Caribbean, if you go outside and the only exposed areas are your face and your hands, you cannot get enough UVB basically. So that's another problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a correlation between sun avoidance and modern disease? So just to have an idea, look how much change there has been in cardiovascular disease just from 2010 and 2009. And the crazy thing is that they tell us that it's the sun, the dangerous thing, but melanoma has risen 600% in the USA since the 1950s. But now the sun exposure Americans have is around 1/8 of what they had in the 1950s. So the correlation doesn't add up on what they're trying to tell us. So
Yeah.
maybe it's
Well,
a
I would just point out that sunlight deficiency, especially UVB deficiency, is likely one of the primary causes of melanoma, because it's highly melanized, and melanin is actually an alternative source of energy for the cells. So in the absence of adequate, radiation from the sun, then it makes sense the body would default to a more primitive and dangerous form of energy production. So that's one of the reasons, probably.
Yeah, there's even a graph. I think it's in this presentation that the farther away you go from the equator, the higher the incidence of any type of cancer. So
That's
if you
right.
live near the equator, you have a lot less cancer risk than if you live high up north. And what's the difference with the equator? That's where you have the highest UVB numbers, because infrared you can have it everywhere, but the UVB is basically better if you get closer to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So this is because we're going to show many different studies. Basically, this is a study super interesting. Non-smokers who avoided sun exposure had life expectancy similar to smokers in the higher sun exposure group. So there was a big headline that says, avoiding the sun is as dangerous as smoking. And everybody knows that smoking is one of the worst things you can do for your health. So definitely sunlight can be doing a lot of good for your body.
I remember that headline. It blew my mind, but it made a lot of sense when I thought about it from the mechanistic perspective, just because of nitric oxide, right? The ability to dilate the blood vessels and arteries, it requires adequate sunlight. And therefore, those who are focused on statin drugs and niacin and all these other therapies or blood thinners, really it's sunlight deficiency that's causing a lot of the endothelial dysfunction, etc.
Oh yeah, sunlight is filled with so many incredible wavelets, each one doing its own amazing thing. Or imagine this one. This headline is amazing. Insufficient sun exposure has become a real public health problem. Studies in the past decade indicate that insufficient sun exposure may be responsible for 340,000 deaths in the United States and
Wow.
480,000 deaths in Europe. And this is because it increases breast cancer, colorectal cancer, blood cancer, cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, and the list goes on. So just with this study, I believe that governments should take an active role in really teaching again people how sunlight can definitely be a game changer in health and lower costs.
A big confirmation of this is if you look at the Green Med Info database right now, we have almost 2,000 studies showing that vitamin D deficiency is linked to over 450 conditions. And,
Wow.
yeah, I know most people don't take vitamin D supplements, by the way. So what it really shows you is when they're measuring, let's say, blood levels of vitamin D, it is an indicator of how much UVB exposure they're actually getting. And so that's the real issue. It's not like, oh, well, we need to take a handful of vitamin D3 supplements, which you'll explain later the difference too between creating it yourself versus taking a pill form. It's really a reflection of just this insane deficiency of sunlight we're dealing with. And listen, I'm in front of a window right now. Windows actually filter out UVB light.
Ah,
So
yeah.
yeah, that's something people don't realize. They're like, oh, I'm in a car, I'm getting sunlight. No, it's actually UVA you're getting, which is more likely to cause accelerated aging without the other waveforms there present. But yeah, Guti's an expert on this. I'm sure you'll get more into it.
Yes, filtered sunlight is super dangerous because in nature you get the UVA with the UVB. The UVB helps your body produce the melanin, so you're protected from the UVA. But when you're driving or when you're next to a window, you're basically filtering out the UVB. That's the one that protects your skin.
That's right. In fact, I understand this because Mercola's done so many years of advocacy on this piece. But if you're exposed to UVA, you're oxidizing the melanin that already exists, whereas UVB causes the formation of new melanocytes. So it's more of a regenerative effect, which then produces more melanin. So that's why you're saying essentially you need both if you're not going to have that accelerated aging from the UVA.
Yeah, as well as the near and far infrared, which causes melatonin to be produced, which is an antioxidant, which is protecting you from oxidation as well. So most people think you just make melatonin through your pineal gland in your brain. However, you also make it in other areas of your body, including your skin, and that protects you from oxidation. So exactly what we're describing. That's why the whole sunshine is ideal.
That's
No,
huge. I just sorry, real quick point. That's huge because for years I've studied melatonin, and it's really one of the primary keys for oncology is if they acknowledge that melatonin is a master antioxidant.
Correct.
Primarily, people think of it as for sleep, but it's through every cell in our body. And exactly what you said is that that's why again sunlight exposure is essential.
Well, and the other thing is for autoimmune conditions with melatonin helps tremendously. Vitamin D helps tremendously. Those are different mechanisms and different pathways that sunshine actually produces. So if anybody has autoimmune conditions, I'm always recommending get out in the sunshine because it will help your cells produce energy, but it also help antioxidize as well.
Yes, the melatonin is amazing because this is, I believe, just discovered around 5 to 10 years. But it used to be believed that all of the melatonin was just produced in your pineal gland. But
Exactly.
now they believe that 95% of the total melatonin production is actually inside your mitochondria, and it's powered by the infrared, as you mentioned.
Exactly.
I didn't even know that. That's profound. Very
Oh
cool.
yeah, they're saying it's stronger, like it's more important, more important. It could be more important than glutathione, which is known as the master antioxidant. They're saying melatonin now actually surpasses the antioxidant effects of glutathione.
Yeah.
I mean, they work differently, obviously, so they're both necessary. However, that's how powerful the science is showing that melatonin is.
Yeah, it's amazing. And incredibly, most of the studies and all of the benefits of sunlight are 20 years old. So it's actually all of this is a new science that is basically proving wrong all that we were made to believe during the 70s, during the 80s. And basically, we're getting back to all the wisdom because one of the terms that I love using is grandma hacks. And it's the hacks your grandmother told you, like go outside, take the sun,
Yeah,
go for a walk after
totally.
you have a big lunch or a big dinner.
That's it.
Don't, don't eat a heavy meal after sunset. So all of those grandma hacks are basically we're starting to go back to that.
Guti, you and I have such a similar view, and
Yeah.
regenerate. A lot of it has to do with, what grandma, a little pinch of turmeric in her, dish was enough to alter the health destiny of her offspring. It's all these like grandmother hacks. So that's it. That's it, exactly. Go outside on your bike and eat your broccoli, all that stuff.
Yes, totally. Let's continue here.
Yeah.
Basically, more studies. We're going to share this presentation, right? So people, if they want to go in depth, they can have it later.
Yeah.
Or, for example, this one, regular exposure to sunlight contributes to the prevention of colon, breast, prostate cancer, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, multiple sclerosis. And initially, and that's one of the points that I want to discuss here, vitamin D is amazing. But as you'll learn during this presentation, a lot of the benefits attributed to vitamin D are actually not caused by vitamin D, but by total sunlight exposure. So when people take more sunlight, their vitamin D levels rises, and then they did studies and believe that all those benefits were
Yeah.
caused by vitamin D, but it's not vitamin D itself because when they do studies and give vitamin D, they can never recreate all of the benefits you get if you get natural UVB, if you get the infrared, if you get the sun.
This is a
Absolutely.
huge point. In fact, in the nutritional advocacy we've had for years, if you look at like an orange, which is like a metaphor for the sun, and you just take out ascorbic acid, this chemical, that does not in any way represent the total benefit of that healing fruit. And that's the same with the sun. There's all these incredible, miraculous waveforms are present. And that's really what you're bringing us back to, Guti, is that, yeah, we can use technology to reproduce some of these, but the sun can never really be replaced, certainly not by a supplement.
Correct. Like for example, I know that there's about a dozen different cancers where vitamin D or the sun is actually protective against having certain levels amounts of vitamin D. But it's not just the vitamin D, it activates P53, the P53 receptor, and that's a tumor suppressing receptor. So it will either suppress tumors or will cause autophagy or program cell death if the cell isn't functioning better. And that's activated by UVB that you don't get through vitamin D directly. So it's a different pathway that helps protect you from 12 different cancers a different way than vitamin D does, which is amazing.
Yeah, in fact, I actually did a bit of research before the presentation, and there's about 3,000 different downstream effects of UVB exposure, but a couple of
Wow.
them are pre-vitamin D creation and vitamin D creation. But But that's the beauty of what you're saying, is it's just a simple, like a small thing that can have massive transformative effects on your well-being and your health.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. There's another one. This is with autoimmune, and you know that they even use UVB lamps to prevent autoimmune skin disorders. But everything is totally related with vitamin D and UVB preventing autoimmune disease.
Absolutely.
Let's see this one. Also, 30% lower risk of having diabetes mellitus as compared to those with non-active habits. That's another important one. I was once pre-diabetic, and definitely taking the sun and taking the infrared has made a huge difference. And basically, we found in this study that all-cause mortality was inversely related to sun exposure habits. So there are so many different studies that everyone can try to find themselves, and it's really opens your mind.
Yeah, just before you go to the next section, I'll just point one thing out, that in evolutionary biology, which, there are many that still subscribe to this view that we evolved, right, over time biologically. And then there are those who are more creationist bent, which I actually am more siding in that direction lately. But one of the things is the conundrum around, why are we the so-called naked ape? There have been entire books written about this. Why do we have no hair? Well, the primary explanation evolutionarily is that it was so essential for us to have vitamin D, and basically the cascade we're referring to, sunlight exposure being optimized for creating these thousands of downstream effects, that we literally lost this protective fur in order to optimize that scenario. So that's one interesting thing I'll point out, that even the conventional evolutionary biologists believe that that's how essential our dependence on sunlight exposure was, that we literally lost, the fur on our skin. So
Mhm.
next.
Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to share my personal journey. My background is in economics, but most of my life I dedicated myself for photography. I did many years professional photography, but I always loved teaching. So I wanted to share everything that I've learned the hard way, the easy way. So that's why I created an online school that is still working. And we got to be number one. Photography and retouching school in Spanish. So I was very happy for it. I got to make like 38 courses and 17 books. So that was a very nice experience. So I got to study photography very deeply. This is an example of some of the work I did. This had no Photoshop or AI. This
Hmm.
is before
Wow,
AI even
Cool.
existed. So we made this set for real.
that's
So I
beautiful.
really enjoyed all of this part of my life. But 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, I got a big divorce exactly during the pandemic, as many couples did. And from being totally healthy, basically, I got diagnosed depression. My testosterone got down to 280. So I went to the doctor and they prescribed me TRT, and it was amazing. That's an amazing transformation I got. And also my A1C levels were very high. So I got to the doctor, and it was a great decision because that helped me recover much faster. But basically, fast forward 2 years, I was feeling better. And when I talked to my doctors, they were in a way against of stopping TRT, because some doctors believe that once you start on TRT, your body won't be able to produce testosterone again by itself. So if you start, you continue. And also some doctors are like, yeah, you should better continue with antidepressants. But I love always reading and doing research by myself. So I started reading alternatives to what I was doing, and amazingly, all of them pointed to natural sunlight. And I was like, sunlight can actually be something that heals you and helps you with all this. I didn't believe it myself, but I had nothing to lose. So I started taking naked sunbaths in my garden. This is where I still get my naked sunbaths. And from day number one, and that's the amazing thing about sunlight or UVB, from day number one, you can feel the immediate boost in your mood. And that's why people love going on vacations to the Caribbean, because you simply feel better. And that's because when you get the UVB on your skin, basically you're producing more serotonin and dopamine. So that's amazing. So I started doing this, and basically, fast forward 4 months, I was out of TRT. Initially, my levels dropped. I was from 650. They lowered a little bit to around 380. So I was like, maybe this is not working, but I continued going. And then they got again to around 650. And now without TRT. So I had levels in my 40s that usually you only have when you're a teenager. Or even this week, I got measured and I'm around 811. And I attribute this to taking sunlight during the day, and also to respecting the darkness in my night and going to bed early.
Let me
So
just jump in. This is so profound because, we've normalized this concept of andropause, which is legitimate, that men, as they age, they lose testosterone, right? But this actually disrupts the notion that some inevitable diminishing of one's capability, that it's more related to a very common deficiency, which is what I love to hear, because I know that there are examples. Many cultures have people living late into life, super active, 100 years plus. The men are vital, they're happy, they're not depressed. And this may be one of the reasons. Most all of them are living outside, or they have a lot of active outside time. And this is such a great example, because some people are on TRT and they're like, of course, your levels drop, you can't produce it anymore. The medical establishment says you have to take it for life, but you're living proof that that's not the case. So thank you for sharing that.
yeah, and it's amazing because, in my opinion, there are many things that affect testosterone, like exercise, fat level, diet, emotional. But the biggest change I've seen is having a good night's sleep, avoiding white lights at night, and getting as much sunlight as you can in the ideal range through your eyes and on your skin. Because even I've done tests that even one night of bad sleep can get your testosterone down. So it's
Yes.
incredible.
And there is a movement to have people like kind of sun their so-called private parts. So I
I do
imagine
it.
that, right, that's part of the key behind how that you get your testosterone back up.
Oh yeah, that I do it myself, and it's working. Right now I'm over 800, and I'm so happy for that. And one fact, that on average 70-year-old males in the United States in the 1950s, 60s had
Yeah.
more testosterone than teenagers in the US nowadays. So
Yeah.
basically every year the testosterone levels in males in the US
Yeah.
drop continuously by 1%.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, it's a form of cholesterol, right? So our body needs to somehow synthesize it from cholesterol. And, there's this thinking that, oh, well, I guess it's happening somewhere in our gonads and, it just sort of happens. Well, no, actually the sun is driving the process. And that's essentially what you've discovered with your technology. So that's profound.
Well,
Yes,
and I'll tell you that I have this conversation almost every day in the office with a patient, because, TRT is the thing to do now, just for, muscles and libido and, feeling better for men, sometimes even for women. But most men are looking at, in their 50s, 60s, and 70s at taking this. And if you get it naturally, without causing a whole host of side effects, and without having to also take a whole list of other drugs to prevent and downregulate the causing cancer in your body by taking TRT.
Yeah.
I mean, this is extremely profound and very important for people to understand, that if you're looking at regulating hormones, that you do it through sunshine, UVB, and proper sleep first. Try that first by all means, because that's the original TRT is that.
Yeah, just really quickly for those who don't fully understand this, it's pretty simple, is that if you're taking an external form of a hormone, there's a negative feedback loop in your endocrine system there to protect you, which is saying, oh, well, I don't have to produce it anymore, so I'll make less. And that's why, weightlifters who use a lot of injected testosterone, their gonads actually literally shrink, as well as their, actual anatomy. And that's just well known. And then, as Joelle pointed out, then you have increases in the formation of estrogens as well as dihydrotestosterone, which causes things like male pattern baldness, a lot of really bad side effects. So it's better to do it naturally is a great rule to apply.
Yes, and basically the logic is if 80 years ago we didn't need TRT because most men have their natural levels, so we must be doing something wrong right now. So maybe the answer is not always TRT, but try to live as we did 70, 80 years ago with our diet, with our light exposure, with our sleep, with the exercise. So getting the grandma hacks, as I keep telling.
Yeah, that's right.
Definitely.
Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about sunlight and artificial light because people believe, and I used to believe that light is light, but there's a whole different type of light. And here I want to mention the starting part of the Bible because even in the Bible, we start talking about light and how important light is in life and creation.
Excellent.
So here teaching a little bit about the structure of light. So when you go outside in the sun on average, because this changes between latitude and time of the day, but in general, 54% of the energy is infrared. And we used to believe that the infrared was just heat and wasted energy. But right now, during the last 10, 15 years, basically we have understood that our skin is basically like a solar panel the same way that plants produce energy through light, through chlorophyll, we're producing light, but in a different pathway through our mitochondria. So this is amazing, and there's a lot of science behind this. How taking the sunlight because of the infrared can basically give more energy to the electron transport chain and also to your mitochondria. So 55% of that energy that is totally absent in modern LEDs is infrared, and it's super important. Then visible light is 38%, and UV radiation can be between 4 and 6%, but most of it is UVA. UVB, even in the Caribbean, at its greatest point, is just 0.5%, and that's in the Caribbean. So if you go probably right now, even to Florida, maybe it's zero point 0.1 or even less at the highest moment. So UVB is like the important thing that it's not always present. So, on the other hand, a normal LED is composed of visible light, 99. So, working towards efficiency, we have removed all of the infrared and all of the ultraviolet, and even the violets are removed, and even the reds. So that's what's happening. So if you ever felt, and I'm very sensible to the light spectrum, if you ever felt depressed or anxious when spending too much time indoors, basically it can be that your body is responding to the artificial light. You're missing what nature has to offer. And whenever possible, and that's one advice I have for everyone, it doesn't matter wherever you live, take breaks every hour and go outside at least 5 minutes to get some natural light, and that will change everything. So that's one advice I try to do. I always go at least 5 minutes, get some light, then back inside, and that has been a game changer to me.
And for people who aren't yet aware of this, when you're exposed to blue light, it's actually on some level the equivalent of a stimulant. It's almost like caffeine. And I would almost argue it's like amphetamine in terms of when you have blue light on, you cannot shut your brain down and you can be very productive, but it has a huge cost. And that's why you should use things like Flux, the software that helps to shift things more to the red range, or now Apple products have it built in with night shift. It's such a profound difference when you start really looking at light hygiene and making sure you're not saturating yourself with these stimulatory waveforms, because it just changes everything about your physiology and the way you live your life.
Oh, yeah. And also, one advice, and here is one question. Have you ever gone to the beach and after enjoying the sun, you felt in a better mood and slept much better at night? And that's incredible in my experience. When I take the sun during the day, it's 8 o'clock and I just want to go to fall asleep because of all of the biological things that have happened in my body with sunlight. So that's,
Well,
in my opinion, the best cure for bad sleep, taking the
I'm
sun.
gonna I'm gonna skip ahead and cheat a little bit here, but when I first used the technology you created, the craziest thing happened. I slept like a baby. It was crazy. I gave myself a good 10-minute exposure. And that's when I was like, wow, this technology is really unique. I need to really, take my time to investigate it. So 6 months later, here we are, and I've experienced the full set of benefits. But that was one thing I noted that was profound. I slept so well. I was so relaxed. And I think that's because my body had no UVB for probably years. Even though I'm in Florida,
Mhm.
I go outside, even like without like a shirt, but it still doesn't really solve the problem.
Oh yeah, sunlight is amazing. It increased the melatonin with the
That's
infrared,
true.
with the UVB, so many things. Also the light in your eyes. So it's many pathways. So here's a comparison. This is when you look here, you see this is natural sunlight. So it has, and this is just one part because here it stops in this diagram at 360. But in nature, for example, UVB as the one using in our device is at 295. So it goes to the left. And here the infrared, it goes even to 10,000 in nature or even longer with the long infrared. So this is in nature, but what did they do? The
Mm,
fluorescent is here. They put some phosphors that react to the blue, to the green, and to the orange. So this was the most depressant light ever. I think this should be even illegal because it affects your mood so badly. And there was the incandescent. The incandescent, by the way, was not that bad at all. It was not efficient. It was not white because it was mostly toward the warm side, but 90% of the energy is infrared. So they got them away because they were not efficient. But actually, these are the ones I use right now at my house at night
mm.
because they give a lot of infrared and they don't have the blue that disturb your sleep. And this is basically what we have 99% of the time in America and the rest of the world. We have a spike in the blue, then we don't have any violets, any reds, and the infrareds, and it's just unnatural. It's efficient, but it's unnatural. And having this at night can basically totally disrupt your sleep because we have photoreceptors in the eyes that basically react to the 460 to the 480. And if you have this light at night, basically you're telling yourself it's daylight, produce cortisol, don't produce melatonin, and that was causing a lot of disturbances and fat gain and so many other things.
Yeah, the research I've gathered on blue light is that it's obesogenic and diabetogenic. So the two primary things afflicting people with the chronic disease epidemic, right, and metabolic syndrome, yeah, they don't realize it, but the blue light is actually contributing profoundly to that.
Yeah, now it's officially considered artificial lighting with the blue carcinogenic. So imagine how bad this can be. So basically, LEDs are super efficient, but they're not that biologically optimal because they're lacking the UVA and the UVB. And it's not a problem if you use them 1 hour a day. The problem comes when instead of spending time in nature with a full spectrum, you're spending inside in your office all day without the infrareds. So basically, what we're having right now, it's a UV and a near infrared deficiency. That's what's happening. It's not the light by itself, but the lack of the other wavelengths.
Yeah.
So here's one question, and everybody will know it. What is the most well accepted benefit of taking sunlight? And when people talk about sunlight, they say vitamin D, and that is definitely true. So vitamin D is vitamin that is actually a hormone that during the last 10 years, and in my opinion, every year, it gets more attention because they used to believe that it was just affecting the calcium absorption, so it was good for your bones. But now it's understood that basically it can trigger more than 3,000 genes. So that's a big deal.
Well, and can I just add here real quick that it's what I've noticed is that vitamin D fluctuates a lot. If you're in times of stress, if you're fighting an infection, there's a lot of things that will actually cause your vitamin D levels to plummet. So you might get a beautiful score of 85 on your vitamin D blood test and think that's where your average is for the long term. But if you're fighting something like like an infection or something like that, if you get a cold, if you're going through a really tough time in your life, your vitamin D levels will plummet. So you have to be actively engaged in promoting vitamin D levels, which is why we need sunshine and sunlight regularly, not just once, and then you're good for a long time. A lot of people think because it's a certain score on their blood test that it stays like that for a long time, but it does fluctuate very quickly.
Hey, just an example, I tested my vitamin D levels in August, and it was around 90
Beautiful.
nanograms per deciliter, so I was doing great. But then came the rainy season. I did not use my lamp too much during September, and in October I did some travels in Asia, and I tested them again this week, and now I'm at 40.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So if you go with
exactly.
40 to a doctor, they say, "Oh, you're doing great." But now that I know better, I usually try to be between 70 to 90, even to 100.
Yeah, yeah.
So it can go down very, very, very easily. It goes down more slowly with natural sunshine than with oral, but it always goes down. So if you live in a place up north, definitely you should find a way not just to supplement with vitamin D, but to get the UVB that makes the better kind of vitamin D.
Which we're going to introduce you a little bit later in this webinar here.
Yeah. So this is an example of how you can produce vitamin D in the United States in January. So basically, just these small places in yellow are the ones where you can produce a little bit. And I mean a little bit because it's three, but you don't have any reds or any purples here. So basically, in January, you cannot produce vitamin D no matter where you live in the US or Canada or Northern Europe. So, and also another interesting fact, the day in the year with the highest mortality is also the year that on average you have less sunlight. And the day of the year with the least mortality is usually the day with the most sunlight hours in the year. So
Mm.
imagine the relation between health and sunlight.
Yeah, that's really profound because, once again, living in Florida, having access to a beach, when you walk on the beach and you get that sunlight and you feel the cardiovascular benefits, it's not like, over time, it's that day. There's just a sense that, wow, my blood is flowing well, the nitric oxide is working. So that's again why it's helpful to have a way to be able to really titrate it yourself,
Mhm. Also, something, it doesn't mean that in December, January, and February, you don't get benefits from going outside. You still have to go outside and take the sun, but you won't have UVB. So you won't be having the UVB benefits, but you'll still receiving the infrared, which is super important. And this table over here is also very important because, as we have been telling you, when you get the UVB, vitamin D is just the tip of the iceberg.
That's right.
All these are other chemicals that your body is producing that also have biological effects and that are chemically similar to vitamin D. So that's one of the reasons that oral vitamin D, that's just one form, can never replace sunlight because you produce all these different that are now every year being proven that have biological. Because if they wouldn't be needed, the body wouldn't be producing them. The same case as with the artificial vitamin C.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the body is infinitely complex. There are trillions of things happening every single picosecond in our body. And the hubris of, mankind has been that we think that we can simply just replace something that we don't even understand the effects of. So we know vitamin D3 is relatively non-toxic versus most supplements and definitely versus drugs. But the reality is that nature has our back in a way that we don't even understand the complexity of this stuff. And that's why get the thing itself if you can.
Yeah, actually, one of the chemicals your body produces here It's like a vitamin D type of reserve. So it's not vitamin D, but it's there. And when your body feels that you don't have enough vitamin D, then it changes this chemical to vitamin D. And that's one of the reasons that when you take sunlight, it takes longer for your levels to go down.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so vitamin D, it's super important. I'm not against people taking oral vitamin D, but you cannot replace all of the benefits of UVB with vitamin D.
Excellent.
So what does this one say? Yeah, individuals with high serum vitamin D levels are at a reduced risk of hypertension, cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome. Yet multiple trial data shows that oral vitamin D supplementation does not affect these endpoints. So basically, it's not just about vitamin D, but the bigger picture when people are taking the sun actually.
Yeah, I want to give people a quick example. Like there's been a, multi-decade long $200 billion industry around convincing people that the primary cause of heart disease and heart attacks and deaths is increased lipids, right? So the statin drug manufacturers convince people that everyone should take them. That's going to be the best way to go about reducing your risk of death. But the reality is that, they're using semantic trickery. They might say, oh, if you take a statin, you have a 25% reduced risk of a heart attack. But they're talking about relative risk reduction, not absolute risk. So what that means is like 1,000 people might have to take a statin drug, all of whom are experiencing profound side effects, for one person instead of two to have a heart attack. So that means they say, oh, that's a 50% reduction in the risk of death. No, it's actually absolutely insignificant from an absolute risk reduction perspective. And that's why people have been convinced that poisoning themselves essentially is the best way to prevent heart disease, when it is, in fact, infinitely more compelling to look at the research on vitamin D deficiency or sunlight exposure as a way to take control of your health destiny.
Yes, totally. So, what other benefits does taking sunlight give us? So, here we're going to talk about one incredibly big trend, and that's the red light therapy panels. And they're amazing. Basically, as I told you, they enhance cellular energy production by stimulating cytochrome C oxidase. They also reduce inflammation, the famous inflammaging, also improves skin and anti-aging by increasing circulation and collagen production, pain reduction, muscle and wound recovery, production of structured water, and as you mentioned, Joel, production of intracellular melatonin. And I
Yeah.
want to share a little story that I had because when I started in my journey with light benefits, to me, red light therapy was just for anti-aging of the skin, but I didn't believe it had any deep benefits. But I had a dog called Winnie, and she was very sick and she was barely walking because of her arthritis. So since I was already on this journey and purchased panel, I made her a crate. I put a panel there, and she loved it because it reminded her of sunlight. So she spent hours there. And to my surprise, because I didn't believe it, and I had videos showing that she was basically running 15 days after using daily the red light panels because of the power of the infrared. So I was like, this cannot be true. I given her all of the supplements the vet recommended, and they help a little bit, but now she's running again. And that's how incredible red light therapy or the infrared of the sun, because this is nothing, not super high tech, is just recreating part of the energy of the sun.
Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
lot of folks who use red light. We've been, big advocates of it, and we use it ourselves. It's incredible. Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, I've had a profound transformation for myself personally with that as well. I had a really serious concussion years ago, and I went from having a photographic memory to still a decent memory, but nowhere near what it was like prior to the accident. And then years after the accident, I was actually doing a live stream and interviewing Dr. Michael Hamblin, who's the editor of the Journal of Photobiomodulation. He is literally the world expert on
Mhm.
photobiomodulation.
Yes, it
And we
is.
were talking about it, and he was saying, well, you have to red light your brain
Hmm.
and do that twice, 20 minutes a day. And I did that. I did it twice, 20 minutes a day, for probably 2 to 3 months, somewhere in that range. And my memory came back like it was 10 years younger. Like, it was incredible, the difference. And so I always recommend red light therapy for the brain. Like, if you're having memory issues or dementia issues, it's so important to give your cells the necessary energy for them to function well again. For me, it made a tremendous difference. For a lot of my patients, it made incredible differences as well.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Hmm.
So that's one part. So red mirror is needed for optimal health, and many experts consider the lack of infrared to be the scurvy of the 20th century, affecting mitochondrial health. So, and what's happening, as we discussed earlier, with the artificial light from the LEDs, they've taken away the infrared. We're not going outside. So we're basically depriving our body of one of its most important nutrients, that's infrared. So now we go to my favorite part, that's the UVB benefits. And before that, we go to the UVA, because that's also important. UVA, it's amazing, and most of all because of the metabolic effects and also because of the nitric oxide. And for people that don't know what nitric oxide does, Viagra works by increasing your nitric oxide. So it increases vasodilation, and it's a whole cascade of health benefits when your nitric oxide is working the way it should, because usually with age starts going down. That's why you don't see people with impotence problems in their teen years. But every year as you grow older, if you don't take care of yourself, the nitric oxide goes down. And also UV8 helps with the oxidation and the tan. The UVB produces the melanin, and the UVA oxidizes it and give it color. But UVA by itself, it's also amazing how it can benefit your cardiovascular system.
Excellent.
And finally, we go to the UVB. So basically, and this is scientifically proven, UVB can lower the risk of 12 types of cancer, reduce depression, reduce anxiety, improve mood, protect against COVID, lower autoimmune diseases, and increase obviously calcium absorption, and improves the bones because of the vitamin D. So the UVA goes a little bit deeper. So UVA, one of the side effects of UVA is skin aging, but the UVB on the other hand, it's more superficial. It doesn't go that deep. This is the one that can burn you, but also when you do it in the right doses, this is the one that can help you with all of these different benefits. So this is what I mentioned. UVA can age your skin, and UVB can burn you if you don't do it in the right way. But also UVB can improve, and this is an incredibly important one, can improve the skin and the gut microbiome. Imagine how deep this is, because nowadays everybody's taking probiotics, but actually just by taking the sun or using a device that has UVB, you can be improving the gut microbiome. This is one that I didn't expect at all. Also prevent weight gain, increase testosterone and libido, improve sleep, prevent and heal multiple sclerosis, vitiligo, and psoriasis, and also improve memory and cognitive function. So, Joel, the infrared is amazing for cognitive function because it penetrates deeply, but UVB works on different pathways, but they all work together to give a symbiotic benefits.
And I
Yeah,
mean, there's
absolutely.
a reason, multi-trillion dollar reason why people haven't heard about UVB, given that it is natural and technically still free. But this is why. So again, happy you're sharing this with our audience.
Yeah. Guti, let's move quickly through the research so that we can talk about the technology that you've created, your now award-winning technology that we're anxious to share with everybody. So we can go
Yes.
through the more research, but let's move this through this quickly. So we'll let you go through that.
Yeah, basically the idea for my device was started with this research, but basically showed that LEDs in the right spectrum could be more efficient at producing vitamin D than the sun, because you can choose more precisely the wavelengths that you're going to be using. So this is why we choose the 295 nanometer wavelength. Also, this is the graph that I show you, that the less UVB you have, basically the more incidence of any type of cancer that you can have. So you're safer near the equator, you're less safe the farther away you go. Also, this is a study that shows that UVB can prevent weight gain. That's an incredible one. One of the mechanisms is because it lowers your hunger levels because it works with leptin. Also, it helps with cardiovascular disease. That's super important. Metabolic syndrome, a big one. Diabetes, and not just type 2, but also diabetes type 1 because of the autoimmune function. Rheumatoid arthritis, also autoimmune function. So basically, UVB is one of the best healer for any autoimmune disease. It improves your microbiome. It improves your testosterone and libido. It makes you sleep better. And basically, in a way, some of the drugs that you can buy today, they're just mimicking the same pathways that naturally UVB produce in your body when you're exposed to it.
Quick
So
question. Quick question. I think I saw on the graph it increases progesterone and estrogen too. Is that true for women that it will help them with their steroid hormones as well?
yes, because for example, estrogen is produced by the aromatase. So usually when you control testosterone, you can also start controlling the other hormones. And they're all interconnected. So usually when you're doing bad in one hormone, you're doing bad in the others.
Yeah, most of our audience is female, and I didn't want them
Hmm.
to think it was just for testosterone and libido for men because it actually clearly broad spectrum increases hormone production.
Yeah.
Yeah, also in an absolute way, women have more testosterone than estrogen. So one way to correct the estrogen is to also correct the testosterone. Okay, so also cognitive decline in the elderly populations that is affected also by UVB and sunlight exposure, multiple sclerosis. So basically, the way it works with autoimmune, all autoimmune diseases can be linked to irritable bowel disease, and this can be linked directly to lack of vitamin D because when you don't have enough vitamin D, this starts the complete cascade. Also, how do they treat vitiligo with UVB?
Oh wow.
And there's so many different pathways. Cognitive function, moderate UV exposure, enhance learning and memory by promoting glutathione biosynthetic pathway in the brain, as I was telling before. So how to reap the sun benefits naturally? Because usually when I go to conference, I start by telling the audience, I'm going to show you how not to buy my device, because that's
Yeah.
the reality. I had a friend of mine that wanted to purchase my lamp, and he's a surfer here in El Salvador. And I told him, "You don't need my product. You're already having the lifestyle. You're spending time outside. You don't need it." And he's thin, and he has incredible health because he's just exposed to nature. So basically, either with a lamp or with sun, you need to start slowly to build your solar callus or tan, however you want to call it. It's better if you don't do it in hot weather. So that's a great thing because one of the best ways to get the UVBs in the mountains, because you have a higher level of UVB, but also because you're not in a warm environment. Also avoid sunglasses because if not, you're not giving your body the signal through your eyes to start producing melanin. And also start slowly and start early. You don't want to start at noon and get burned. You start with the more infrared and then gradually go in 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. until you go to, because you don't have a meter to know what are the quantities.
Guti,
Also,
you're like a sun shaman.
Yeah.
Like an expert and a shaman all put together. Good job.
yeah, I've really become passionate about this. Also, food is very important. So if you're going to start a sun protocol, you should start avoiding what you know you should be avoiding. That is ultra processed food, also vegetable oils, everything that's not natural, and to start replacing that with animal fats, with good fats like olive oil, like coconut, also supplements like astaxanthin, which is amazing. It's one of the best antioxidants and also great for the skin. So here are just some supplement recommendations. Also, if you're ever going to use sunscreen, I'm not against it. If you want to spend more that your body can handle, option number one is cover. Option number two is to use mineral sunscreens. And this is a little bit about how sunlight works. In the morning, it's just the infrared. In the mid morning, it's the UVA. And if you're in these places in color, then you get the UVB at noon the way that it's supposed to.
Wow. So most people in the US aren't even in that range. I mean,
And now for most of the US, you can get UVB just probably 4 to 5 months a year.
In
mhm.
all of Europe as well. Is your device available in Europe?
Oh, yeah, it's available in Europe.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So basically, this is conclusion, and now we can start talking
Yeah.
about our device. We're not reinventing the wheel. Nature doesn't make mistakes. If you live near the Caribbean and you have the time, because even people in El Salvador, as an example, most people here wake up at 6, go and are in the office from 7 or 8 till 6 p.m. So even if they live in El Salvador, they're not having any natural sunlight because uh, all of the day when you have the light, they're inside with artificial light. So it doesn't mean that if you live at the right places, you're going to have the ability to have a great sun exposure because you're working, you're inside. So these are the conclusions. Vitamin D supplementation is no substitute for vitamin D. But if you want, we can talk a little bit about
Yeah.
the device
Well,
now.
yeah, let me show you guys because in the background you've been seeing this nice glow, and this is my one of the Mitalux products that you've created. And I actually bring this with me. I'm actually visiting my mom here in New Jersey, and this one is really easy to travel with, and it has a fireplace mode for sort of a background, as well as I use it therapeutically. It's very convenient. Um, but I did want to let people know I love this device so much that initially I went to extremes and I ended up giving myself something like 100 times more than it was nuts. But I think I experienced that so that I could warn consumers that when you use this, you have to be careful because it is like having a son that will give you like really intense sunlight. So you've created a form too that has a built-in warning. So maybe you can go more into the different devices but that's what I had to learn personally. It's
Yeah.
very powerful.
Okay, so this is the device. We have two models. This is the premium model, the Mitalux. So first of all, it's super compact. You can travel with it. You can fold it, so it doesn't take up much space. What that was one of the objectives with the design. It also looks very nice. And one of the modes that it has, because everybody today wants to buy a red light therapy mask, they want to buy a red light therapy panel to get all of the benefits of the infrared. So we have this included. This is called the healing mode, and as you can see, it's
Yeah.
quite powerful. So
Yeah.
you can use this, for example, uh, 10 minutes a day in your face, in your neck, in your hands, and that's like doing anti-aging therapy. Also, you can use it closer near your joints when you want to get the benefits. So we do that.
What wavelengths are in the red light?
Yeah, it's actually what that's a great question because most of the panels only have two wavelengths. The super professional expensive ones have four. We have six wavelengths because basically in sunlight you have a full spectrum. So that's not available yet with current technology. I hope it will be in around 5 to 10 years. But the more wavelengths you add, the better. So this has the 590. That's the amber that helps with skin anti-aging, especially for people that have sunspots. That helps repair that or the melasma. So the 590 helps with that. Also help with nitric oxide. And most of the products in the market don't have the amber color, the 590. Then we have the 630 red, and that's like superficial benefits because it just goes like 1 centimeter deep. So, but it's incredible for skin anti-aging. But then we added four different wavelengths of infrared. We added the 810. That's incredible for deep penetration, muscles, joints. We also have the 830, the 850. That's one of the wavelengths most companies use. But we also added the 940. And this is especially here because that's the wavelength that has been proven to protect you more from the UV. So the sun works in conjunction. UVA and UVB gives benefits, but also it puts a little stress to the body. But when you add the infrared, basically then that's a neutralizing the stressful part from the UV. So the 940 basically prevents erythema, so it helps you take more UV without getting burned. So all of the wavelengths are really designed. So 6 wavelengths in total for the healing mode.
Yeah, and I believe like this is one of the reasons why I think it was Outliver magazine did they did an in-depth dive on the 15 best red light therapy devices for home use, and actually they ranked Guti's device number one out of all the 15 that they checked. They also ranked it number one for the UVB, which I'll let him talk about as well.
Oh
Wow.
yeah. So we're very proud to have done that, and
Yeah,
yeah, super happy because they're products that are bigger, more expensive companies with more years than us, but there we are. And basically, what makes us different is that we try to mimic nature. That's what
amen.
we're trying to achieve. So that's the healing. Also, I want to show you before we end up with the UVB, one of the modes that we're basically the the pioneers and is what I call the fireplace.
Hmm.
So basically, when you're in your office all day, you're exposed just to the visible light and you're lacking the infrared. So I said, why don't we make a program that gives you most of the infrared energy, just a little bit red, so you can have it for hours, basically improving the light conditions in your workplace. And I'm going to here do an experiment so I can show you how it usually looks. This is an spectrometer. So I'm going to measure to the screen.
Sarah, do you want to put him on? Can you put him on a bigger screen?
Oh yeah, let's see. Can I do this? Let's see.
I'll
Yeah,
show
there
you
you go.
here.
Got it. Yeah,
So this is basically an example, and this is actually better than you would get in normal LED lighting because I have some special white here that give more infrared, but basically you have a blue spike, and that's what you usually get. And now but you don't have any infrared. Now I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to do it again, just last time, so you can see. You have blue, you have basically non-infrared. Now that I turn it on, I'm going to use this again. Wait, wait, so, okay. And now look at this.
Oh.
That part that you see in black is the infrared. So basically right now you can only see a little spike in red, and that
Mm,
would be the 590 and 630. You
mm.
don't see the blue light. So basically, we're neutralizing the blue light by giving more infrared. And
Mm.
look at all that energy. So basically, we transformed one environment that was infrared deficient into one environment in which 95% of the energy you're getting is infrared.
Wow.
So, and, uh, and,
That,
and we're the pioneers in the fireplace mood.
that is
I mean,
amazing.
Sarah and I have been using that fireplace mode while we're on working on our computers for the last 6 months. It's easier on the eyes as well. You're not. It feels like it like protects your eyes from the blue light as well. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah, basically, you're putting back again the incredible ingredient that's called infrared, and that's been taken away of artificial light. So I try to use this all day long.
Beautiful.
Also, I try to use it with my TV because even in your bedroom, it also has one mode that is super nice that is called the fireplace too. And
Yeah.
it basically goes up and down like a candle. So I use this beside my television and I transform an environment that's totally high in blue and deficient in the infrared into a more healthy environment.
I don't think we explained too how much vitamin D can be produced within a range of, say, 5 even to 10 minutes, if you can go over that, because it's pretty profound.
Oh yeah, vitamin D production depends on many factors. One would be the area of exposure. If you're clothed and just expose your face and your hands, that's just a 10% body exposure, so you have a hard time. But if you get the sun in in your chest, for example, then that's a bigger area. So basically, Also, the age, your highest point you can produce vitamin D is when you're 20, then it slowly starts going down. Then also when you're slim, you produce more than when you're fat. So also the skin color, if your skin color is a lower number in the Fitzpatrick, so clear, you produce more fast than if your skin is darker. But for example, as a starting point, for somebody that is Fitzpatrick type 2, sorry, like Joel, if you use the UVB3 mode, for example, you could be producing on average around 3,000 IUs of vitamin D in one cycle. So that's much more than the suggested 800 units that they recommend that you take, that I believe that that's too little. So basically, it's designed that in 5 minutes, you'll be getting a little bit more than your daily dose of vitamin D. So that's amazing. But we have users that use it on the chest, then on the back, then on their legs. So you're exposing more area. So you could be getting higher numbers of vitamin D.
I mean, the amazing thing about this, because of my work for years, has been about restoring, let's say the microbiome, paleo restoration of the microbiome, where you may have been born into the world, maybe into a hospital, maybe C-section, and never even had the bacteria that we've had since the beginning of time. You can say from the Garden of Eden or whatever perspective you have on the origin of humanity. The same is true for light. Your body may have never been exposed to the waveforms that for tens of millions of years our ancestors had and needed. So it's kind of an amazing experience when you start getting this light. Maybe you're naked, like in your own bedroom alone, and you're finally able to experience light exposure like this. Be prepared for an experience. I mean, like I said, my first experience was I was so relaxed I couldn't get over it, because I've dealt with insomnia for many years and used supplements and everything, but this was a different type of relaxation. And I was convinced it was because I'd never experienced that amount of UVB in my entire life. So it's not a small thing to start experiencing this technology. And the science is there. The anecdotes, I know that Joel and I, like, we waited 6 months to do this because we've been testing it out. I will say this too. Another anecdote is when Bobby and Maha launched the Kennedy Challenge. I started to use this in an attempt to increase my own testosterone, and I haven't had it measured, but I can tell you that I was able to do that challenge, and my muscle mass like expanded rapidly. I don't recall having that much muscle mass or fitness since I was like 18.
Yes.
So the proof's in the pudding. You have to experience it, but my own experience has been pretty profound.
Wow, that's amazing. So coming back to the UVB mode, it's designed as to be super user friendly. So I recommend that you read the instruction because this is very powerful. We don't want you to get burned. Also with the UVB, you need to use the glasses that come inside because they will block the UVB. You want the UVB on your skin, not that high level of UVB on your eyes. And it's super simple. For example, I'm Mediterranean genes, so I'm a Fitzpatrick type 3. So to start, I would go to the UVB tree, turn it on, and many things happen. First of all, the first minute, you get your skin prime because it doesn't have the UVB. It only has the 6 wavelengths of the red and the near infrared. Then it will have, in this case, 3 minutes of UVB with the infrared, and then 1 minute with the infrared. So it's like a mini sun cycle that primes your skin before and after.
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
It's so
There's
brilliant.
nothing else.
Exactly.
There's no other product that has this. This is
I mean,
amazing.
like, as far as we've been on the earth and our ancestors have been on the earth, that's how it worked, right? The sun would rise, you get certain wavelengths, and then you get the UVB at the noon time. So that's what we love about your company is that, and your vision is that you've used nature as your inspiration, which is what we're all about.
Yes, thank you. Also, in order to make it safer, we're the only panel on the market that has a safety distance sensor. So the recommended distance is to be at 15 inches. But if you get closer than 12 inches, then basically you will hear a beeping sound, and this will pause the UVB until you get back into the right distance. And we did this because there are other lamps on the market and people sometimes they don't read instructions and you get too close and then the UVB dose will be too high. So one of our priorities is safety, and that helps people stand at the right distance when they're going to be the UVB, and that's around 15 inches.
Excellent.
Amazing. Well, we want to thank you, Guti, for all your work and the genius behind this design and your generosity. So I met you at a Miami convention, and we had a conversation, and you just handed me one for free. And I was like, it was amazing because I was so excited about the product. I'd been looking for someone who would produce the sort of missing link in health, which is UVB. I had yet to even know anybody out there who had done it, much less the way you had done it, so professionally, so scientific. And that was the beginning of the journey, which led us to this point. So I just want people to understand that Guti is an incredible soul. I felt like such resonance with you because I'm very giving too. And that's why this is more than just a product. To me, it was based on a healing journey, which is how I came to my path with Green Med Info, and that's similar to your company. So this partnership, I think, is going to be really powerful in helping people to really figure out how to restore their health from the ground up.
Yeah, that's the idea, and I'm super happy to be already working with you. And as I believe, the step number one is always education, because most people have no idea how something as simple as light can be so transforming, and that's what we need to do to get back to basics and be as healthy as possible.
100%. So we have a special link down below for an offer that's just for our community. So thank you for that. And yeah, I just welcome people to join us on this journey. Joelle, any last words?
Well, I mean, I've been using the light. You've been using the light. I have one. My son goes to school in the Northeast, and I have one there for him because there's hardly any sunshine up there. And so I would highly encourage people to use this because from mood to joint pain to brain function to autoimmune conditions to weight loss to hormone balance, I mean, there really isn't a body process that isn't affected by sunlight. And so if you're looking to feel better and function better, I mean, you have to start here. This is really, really basic, but absolutely necessary. So I would encourage you to look into the Mitolux sun lamp. We absolutely love it. We use it ourselves, and that's why we're here today with Guti, sharing the good news, basically.
Also, the timing is perfect for gifts, but the reality is that there are only a limited number as well, just to be an FYI. So you might have to wait a certain period for the next batch to be produced, but absolutely, like, we want to make sure that we're providing this information to you and this product at the best value possible. Guti, any last words?
No, just to take health into your hands, and sometimes you find that the best cures are something as simple as changing your habits and taking more sunlight. And we designed this product to make it easier for you if you cannot have access to the sun.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being part of this.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.